Bones are amazing things. They hold us up. They support us. They make us strong. But bones have other uses. In the past, bones were thrown by diviners, seeking out the mysteries of the future. Now the bones are cubes, made of plastic or resin, but they still reveal things to us. As they fall from our fingers and rattle across the table, the story becomes clear. Welcome to Bone Throwers Theater, an RPG actual play podcast.
Well, can you believe it? Here we are, all these years later. I'm Jordan. I'm a player today. But this is episode 400 of Bone Throwers Theater. Thank you so much for listening. And sitting here to my right is...
My name is Jeff. You know me well. I fumble my words, and I don't play well. Continue.
This is Jeremy.
This is Johnny.
And this is Aaron.
And we are actually joined today by a special guest. You might have heard him on previous one-shots. He was, I think, on our very first Inspectors one-shot, and also a part of our Cosmic Patrol episodes. So, bringing back a game creator and longtime friend of the show, Mike.
Hey, guys.
And Mike, you are going to be our Grim Master today.
Yes, that is correct.
And what goes with Grim Master?
So just like a game master, storyteller, director extraordinaire, and provider of challenges.
And that Grim is part of the system name, is that correct?
Yes, so the system is Grimworld. Many, many years ago, actually Jeremy was part of some of the first versions of this system, and we had an idea where you have monsters from story tales and legends and folklore wrapped up with sentient machines and magic monsters and just every niche that we could throw in there and make worked it out to where there was a cohesive universe where they all interacted.
A rather grim world, you might say.
Indeed. Humanity is on the brink of extinction.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for leading us right over to the brink, and maybe we will willingly fling ourselves off into the abyss.
More than once. Or willingly fling somebody else off into it. That's more like it.
My biggest question is, how many sewers are there, and will we be traveling through them?
With bodies.
With bodies.
That seems to be a theme for all of our stories. Somehow we end up in the sewer and carrying a dead body.
Now, I do remember that we have talked about Grim World in the past. Like, I think very much in the first Inspectors series that we did together. So it's really amazing to see how much you've been working on this and how you've brought it to fruition. And now we are actually able to play test it and see what it's like here on air today.
A few years behind the schedule.
You know what? Life works in mysterious ways, and sometimes you are in a different place than you think you're going to be.
When you're not getting paid to design it, it takes longer.
That's true. So, why don't we go ahead and start with character design, go through here. Now, I'm seeing that there's two different pages here. A social sheet and a combat sheet.
Social shit and combat shit.
Yes. Just like your time in the military, right?
Exactly.
So, Grimworld, you will experience Grimworld in a set of scenes. And it's not always a definitive, oh, now you're in this scene, now you're in that scene. But there are very distinct things that you can do in a social scene versus a combat scene. If you are at odds with someone and flinging words at them, you might not be in combat, but you are certainly in conflict. If you are actively shooting, fighting, running from, running to, etc., that's more combat-based. But before you get to any of that, every story begins with a campfire scene. The campfire scene is where we will get to learn more about the characters. We will get to expand on how they are using their life experiences that they've had. Sometimes it'll be small changes in ideology. Sometimes it might be larger changes in life purpose at these campfires. Throughout the game, longer games, today is going to be a one-shot. We may or may not have space for a campfire in there. Campfires are where you can rest, you can recuperate, you can learn new things based on the challenges that you've overcome. So the farther and fewer campfires you have, the higher the difficulty of the game. because you don't have that chance to recuperate, to spend some reputation on learning things, to expand on how your character's using their life experience, to reflect and realign yourself.
Now, as I look at the rulebook that you provided for us, I am seeing that there is a name for the characters. Instead of just calling them player characters or something like that, they're actually called survivors.
Survivors, yes.
Now, did you make that choice to try and reinforce how desperate the situation seemed to be for these individuals?
So this is, to take us back a moment, it's not a post-apocalyptic role-playing game. It's a post-historic role-playing game. Things got so bad, we stopped recording history. So it is only recently that the pen has been picked back up to start recording the annals of humanity again, because things just got that bad. Society has completely broken down. We've spread out across the globe in small camps called havens. We don't build monuments in cities and towns anymore, because anytime that we have too great of a vestige of humanity, it seems to attract the dark.
Dun, dun, dun.
Indeed. They are the impending sense of doom on the world, because they have inhabited all of the old cities, all of the cities of the ancestors, and they devour human souls. We know very little about them. We know that there are great treasures to be had, and maybe even lost bits of technology to be found in these cities of the ancestors, but at what cost? Those that return are never sane, and those that return are a very small percentage of those that adventure into the cities.
So why don't we go ahead and get started with creating our adventuring survivors? So looking at our information here, the first thing that we would do is we would choose a survival path. And how does that work?
So there are 6 paths. You'll choose either the Corsair, the Outlaw, the Sentinel, the Tinker, the Weaver, or the Wrangler. As a quick overview, the Corsairs are kind of your natural leaders. They're kind of a jack of all trades, but they really excel at giving benefits to the party instead of themselves. The better the party does, the better they do. The better they do, the better the party does. The Outlaw operates on the edge of what's left of society. They operate outside of most norms that you will find in havens. There's still some loose sense of right and wrong, of law and crime, but that varies based on where you go in the world. And the Outlaws are always kind of on the outer edge of that. They get things done because that's how they've been able to survive. The Sentinel is the most adept at combat. They could be a soldier or a mercenary, but they are your most proficient at combat. The Tinker is a combination of a mechanical and technical genius. They can operate what little pieces of electronics they might be able to find, and also work well with crafting things, creating ammunition. Ammunition is very scarce in this world, and people have not had great opportunity, because of the scarcity of ammunition, to use firearms in any way of practicing, or, people are not as good at firearms as they used to be. But ammunition is also not as good as it used to be.
So are we talking more along the lines of like a musket ball type of situation?
No, so you're still looking at whatever survived was going to be the most prolifically manufactured or most durable firearms. Think circa now to 20 years ago, somewhere in there. Muskets and things like that, not really used too much.
Gotcha.
You see a lot of melee weapons, you see a lot of hand-to-hand combat, but what firearms have survived are going to be those that are most durable. The Weaver is a user of magic. Now, magic has returned to the world, and it is perceived as a weave of energies. And there are 2 threads that we have been able to pull from this weave. One of wild magic, which deals with the elements and chaos, and one of shadow magic, which deals with illusion and misdirection and deception. If you're going to be a Weaver, you'll start the game with 6 different spells of your choice from the entire book of spells. So if you are a Shadow Weaver, you'll pick 6 shadow spells. If you are a Wild Weaver, you will pick 6 wild spells. Spells range from power level 1 through power level 6. The mechanic is that you will roll a die, and this will be your brains roll. You will then subtract the power level of the spell from it. So if you are going to play a Weaver, at the beginning of the game, you only have 1 die in each of your attributes. So the most I can get on this is a 7, because if I'm skilled at something, I add 1.
Yeah.
A spell fails on a 1. A spell will have only a minimum effect on a 2. So as a starting Weaver, I would recommend you not pick a power level 6 spell, because it's just not going to work mathematically. One of the things that still needs to be worked into the game is how we advance characters. Eventually you will have, so you don't level up in this, you tier up. You go from a survivor to a veteran to a master to a legend. And you will get the opportunity to apply more dice to your attributes. But we still have to figure out how you garnish new spells. So is there a benefit to picking a power level 6 spell now and not being able to use it, and it just kind of sits in one of your so-called spell slots? And then later on, when you get 2 dice, you don't have to worry about learning it because you already know it, right? So we still conceptually have to work out how we learn magic.
There's one last path that you can take as well.
There is. And this is the Wrangler. The Wrangler is a very shaman, druid, ranger type without the magic. Okay, they actually maintain an empathic psychic bond with a creature. From a young to teenage age, the Wrangler has bonded with this creature using a binding stone. Through a special binding ceremony, they bind the stone to the animal from either sunup to sundown or sundown to sunup, and then they're empathically bound from there until the death of either one of them. The Wranglers are an interesting group to themselves. They organize in groups of kindred. They are the only ones that can do this binding ritual, use the binding stones. Because if you are not a Wrangler and go to try to use this, you will go insane. So there's a little bits of lore through the book. And one of those bits of lore talks about the origin of the binding stones and the fact that there's actually a kindred in the Wrangler society that protect the binding stones. Not so much out of jealousy that they're theirs, but to protect humanity from destroying themselves.
All right.
So do you suggest we divvy up and kind of
have a battle
play?
I will say this, Grimworld rewards you for teamwork.
Okay.
Grimworld incentivizes teamwork. You will do better working as a team. We used to have a little blurb in here that said, you could have a whole group of soldiers and realize halfway through the game you really should have had one doc. So when you're going through and looking at what grabs you, talk to the other players, because as we progress through character creation, you're also going to get a chance to create a background for your character that includes a trade. And the trade is how you have survived. The path is more about who you are. The trade is about how you have survived, what skills you have used. And so essentially there's 36 different starting character types that you can have.
Nice.
That's cool.
Each survival path has a feature action and a quick action. You can use a feature action once per session. A quick action you can use once per combat scene. The trades give you non-combat actions called trade actions. All of the trade actions are social based.
And those two, feature and quick, link to the path.
They associate directly to the path. They are unique to the path. Much, much later in the game, there is an idea that maybe you might be able to get the beginning features of another path when you get like that legend status. And we thought that'd be kind of cool, but we'll see where that lands.
Okay.
There are some suggested skills as part of each of the survival paths. You have a certain number of skill points. You have starting resources. Starting resources are used as rations and ammunition. In this game, we don't really track ammunition unless you're using explosives or you miss. If you miss, you lose ammunition. If you make a hit, you don't mark off ammunition. Not going to take time to track all that. If it's an explosive, hit or miss, you're using ammunition.
Endless explosions.
I'd like to cause a chain reaction.
Did you say a train reaction?
Yes, you did.
No, I said chain reaction.
No, you definitely said train reaction.
To be honest, he did introduce himself as somebody who mixes up his words.
I did.
So of the survival paths, is there anything that grabs anybody?
5 mouths open. Yep.
So I remember when we first read these, the Wrangler sounds like a lot of fun.
It does. It does. I was thinking that too.
You know, it's funny. That's the most feedback we've had about the paths is like everybody's excited about the Wrangler.
That being said, I would also be willing to take the Sentinel.
Oh, okay. I was thinking Outlaw, Weaver, or Wrangler.
Yeah, I was thinking either Corsair or Sentinel.
I like the idea and build behind the Corsair. Like, he's the leader, and if everyone else does well, he gets to cheer them on and help them do even better.
Oh, yeah.
Coming for the person who always rolls ones. I know.
So to expound upon that, their feature action is Champion of the People. The Corsair is a natural leader. Once per session, the Corsair can declare Champion of the People as a 2 action point action, which you get 2 action points per turn. Each member of the party excels at the next roll they make, which means you essentially roll 2 dice and take the highest one. Very similar to other mechanics you might be familiar with. The only thing different is when we talk about shooting, it replaces your lowest die, just in case your highest die was also a success. So you get more chances at hits.
Oh, that's cool.
I was actually. It seems like you guys all had like interest in like everything except the Tinker,
I was thinking about that one also.
and
but
the Tinker was the one that kind of jumped out at me. So
All right, so we have a Tinker.
he said Corsair, so
I just thought it was a cool build.
try it.
yeah,
Okay.
try it out.
Okay.
You never played leader. You can do that.
I feel like I would inject too much Sam into the Outlaw.
Okay.
It doesn't fit the world. So I would be okay either doing the Sentinel or the Wrangler.
I mean, we can have multiple.
Yeah, you can have both.
of the same.
So even if you wanted to have the same trades, that's fine too. I would recommend that if you are the same path, that you pick a different trade. But if something grabs you, something grabs you, and play it out organically and see where it lands.
I'll be a Sentinel.
You're going Sentinel.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Weaver.
You are going to go Weaver. Wrangler.
5 of the 6 paths right there.
Are these predetermined feature and quick actions for each of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's nothing really to choose there. So as you tier up, you will get more actions. You will have options for your trade actions. So it's kind of a pyramid. So you'll be able to pick from different options as you tier up for the trade. I will say I am not going to track them. So if you want to do a thing, you need to know that you can do that thing. Now, there is a neat skill called lore. You have 3 attributes: brawn, bravado, and brains. In the brains skills, there is a lore skill. This skill is useful. You don't get a lot of skill points in this game, but it is useful because if there is something you want to know or something you think your character should know, but you as a player are so new to this system and this world that you need to be insightful in that, you can actually make a lore roll to get insight into what's going on or say, hey, my background really, I feel like you should know this thing. When everyone has picked a name and a trade, I want to fill that in on my tracking. One thing that we have done consistently in all the playtesting that we've had is everyone has a nickname. And that's kind of what they go by, right?
I like it.
So
there's a box in here that says trades. So we got a fixer, clergy, healer, detective, diplomat, hunter, merchant, muscle, nomad, and scholar.
yeah, and the muscle is not done yet. So you can pick them, but it doesn't come with an action right now. Being that the design is non-combat for trades, the original design of the muscle was he was kind of the heavy in the room, and he provided a lot of bonuses when he was present to negotiations because he was very intimidating, and that just doesn't work in the current build. So
I'm liking the nomad, always on the move.
And think also in terms of your character's background, your character story, how that trade works with that survival path. He's not just a weaver, he's not just a nomad, but he's a nomadic weaver.
All right, so are we at a point where everybody wants to pick skills?
So I still need a trade, but I
Yeah, I think let's switch yourself to trades.
Okay. How many skills?
Depends
on
on your character choice, on your path, yeah. So, and there are suggested ones down there. You don't have to stick to that. It's just really kind of a cheat sheet for newer to RPG players.
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend focus, because that's what's going to give you that +1 to weaving.
Dude, I like these suggested skills. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So as far as when I think of the weave shadow side, everybody's aware of the weave.
To some greater or lesser extent, depending on where you're at. The world is roughly conceptualized in Northlands, Eastlands, Southlands, and Westlands. They're not hard set boundaries. They're just vague areas.
Okay.
And it really depends on the area you are, not only how much they know about the weave, but how the weave is perceived. So in some places, you might not want people knowing you do anything magical or psychic or anything.
Yeah.
Other places, that might be a thing to celebrate because it's going to garnish you some benefit. Like, oh, the princes and gods are here, you know. It really depends on where you're at. So it behooves you as a group of traveling adventurer types to really kind of gauge that when you walk into a haven. Like, hey, did you see the guy strung up on the gates? Yeah. Let's lay low.
Can we start talking about some of that capability and where we think that we want our party headed?
Sure. I think that's a good part of collecting your trades.
Okay.
Yep.
So one of the things that I was thinking of, so one of my companion possibility is a raven, which can sense the weave, the arcane, and then tying that with a clergy trade to where I'm kind of a priestly sort, but, as far as at times can be a little shisty, like pass it off as something religious experience going on when it's really a companion who is affecting things.
Snake oil salesman.
At times, depending on if needed.
On the situation.
Right.
I was thinking our group needed the clergy, so.
So the trade I took was merchant because my thought was like going around fixing things, selling off items that had been repaired. So kind of like a traditional tinker approach to it.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking detective.
A Corsair detective. That sounds kind of fun.
So all the skills are tempered by your brawn, your bravado, or your brains. Is that correct?
So the attribute rating is the number of dice you roll. If you have any point in a skill, you are considered skilled at it, and you will add a +1, in this case, to the roll.
And starting at entry level,
You can only have one skill point.
one skill point.
Yeah.
Do you also have only 1 point in your attribute?
Yes. Attributes are automatically set to 111. And then your skills, you decide where your skills are, but the max skills rating for a starting character is 1.
And you don't have to divvy those in any certain pattern.
No,
you could put all 3 in bravado if you want.
Yes, you could have 3 different bravado skills.
Yes.
If you had 3, but you could not put all 3
In the same skill.
influence. Right. Yes.
All right, I got you.
All right, I'll go with fixer.
You said 6 spells.
6 spells. A weaver gets to choose 6 spells. Did you choose to be sensitive to the wild or to the shadow?
Shadow.
You would.
Yeah.
So, to note about the Shadow Weaver is because it is such a edge of the dark arts kind of feel, a lot of places, even that are amicable to the weave, still think that the shadow weaving is not a great thing because the dark is the overwhelming enemy to humanity at the moment. And shadow weaving is just a little close to what most people think the dark is.
Yeah.
So, have fun, sir.
Which of the skills would fit the persuade/deceive
Influence.
That's kind of what I thought.
So as you go through the skills, if you break into the skill descriptions as opposed to the overall list, it'll go through and it'll show how we've condensed. There used to be, like 30 skills per attribute. And we've condensed a lot of that.
Yeah, I think I prefer a shorter attribute skill list.
Yep.
That's
There
nice.
was a time when Jeremy remembers this because this was, I think, our last playtest. Different dice were assigned to different things that you were going to do. Like magic was a D8, initiative was a D12, damage and healing was a D6, stress was a D4. So. But in the end, we said, you know what? Let's do it all D6. You will also see that we have taken one of the biggest jumps, I think, for everybody is that there is not a to-hit and damage roll as a separate thing.
I love
It
that.
is one thing. Our accuracy is the number of dice that we're going to roll. The threat range is the number that we're looking for on those dice to do damage. It's one roll. How likely you are to hit is the number of dice.
Gotcha.
And the potential of damage that you can do is based on a range of numbers on each of those dice. So, for instance, the sniper rifle, you have a very low accuracy to use that. Because in this setting, people have not become super proficient with those things. But the damage range, if that thing hits you, for every 3 through 6, it's going to do damage. And a 6 deals 2 hits. You have 10 hits till you're dead. It can be a very brutal system.
So I've pretty much reached the point of assigning resources. Each survivor has a starting resource value assigned at character generation. This number is split between the 2 banks of resources, rations and ammunitions. Are rations only food or are
Rations
they
are also
fuel?
currency.
Yeah, okay.
Rations are fuel, currency, food. There are some optional rules for hunger, Optionally, a group may decide for a more challenging play experience, and after 2 days of no food, the status effect hunger is applied. Spending a point of rations resource will remove the hunger status effect.
So explain the weave again as far as the rolling.
Okay, so as far as the rolling, you're going to make a focus roll, which is under brains. So you'll roll 1 die for having 1 attribute point in bravado. If you have focus, you'll add 1 to that die. The power level of the spell, 1 through 6, is subtracted from that die roll. What is left is the potency of the spell. The potency, a 1 on potency is going to fail the spell. A 2 on the potency is going to be a minimal effect. So if you're looking at the spell tome, there's a min and a max, right? So there's a normal spell description, which is 3 through 5, I believe. And then 6 is that max spell. So when you look at min and max, what you're reading is the attribute about the spell that it changes. So if the spell you're casting has a range of 50 yards and you rolled minimum and it says 10 yards under minimum, everything else about the spell is the same except for that one thing in minimum that it says it changes. Be it duration, range, impact, or number of targets. And maximum does the same thing, sometimes a little more. Now, you can also, at any time that you fail a roll, you can try your odds. And by trying your odds, you get to take a point from the survival pool, which also takes from everyone's experience, and you get to add it or re-roll the roll that you rolled. Once per turn is the maximum.
So, looking at gear, as a representation of the random nature of survivors and the many roads that they have traveled to get to that point where we first meet them, players will roll 2d6 during survivor creation and get that many items or pieces of gear of their choosing from this guide.
Correct.
So I rolled a 5, so that means I can write down 5 different things on my sheet.
Correct.
So I could say, for example, pliers. Or I'll keep it generic and say tools.
That's fine. One thing also that you'll want to note is that electricity is rare. You might consider at this level of your existence in the world perhaps even fabled.
So I don't have a generator.
Nope.
You
might, but it might not work. You might not know what it is. But if the tinker decides to make it work, he can.
It does say from this guide, but I'm not finding any.
Yes, correct.
Okay, there's no actual gear in the guide.
There's not. No.
Okay,
No, there's not. It will probably stay that way. We might give some examples. We had a whole...
I remember.
Lots of weapons in there. Lots of hand-to-hand combat weapons, stuff, melee weapons, all that. We just stripped it all out of there. Because we really want it to be whatever the playgroup conceptualizes as that area. Right. What do you find? In the text, there are some examples given. There's 3 categories of weapon for firearm and for melee weapons. And if it falls within that range, you can RP it how you want. I have a problem with a lot of video games and role-playing games that don't specifically detail out, like, I love Shadowrun 3rd Edition because it shows me what each of those guns looks like. I like that. They don't all have the same stats. I like individual, granular, war simulation weapons in my games, right? But this is not a combat simulator. It is a post-historic adventure. It's got dark horror in it. It's got a lot of diesel punks feel to it. But from a GM standpoint, there is a GM's guide. We are throwing a lot of different RP aspects into weapons because there are perks that weapons can have and there are perks that armor can have. So just because you have generic stuff now, you can find stuff of the same category, but it's going to be cooler.
Okay, so narratively, how far can we push this for creativity speaking?
For purposes of character creation now, as far as you want to, outside of a mechanical effect.
Okay. So the one piece of equipment that I have that is kind of weird that I have written down is called a ghost whisper. That's all I'm giving you.
I can deal with that.
Gear. So what do you roll again?
2d6.
2d6?
I got 11 pieces.
Nice.
I got 12.
Nicer.
There are my 6s for tonight.
I got 6.
So do your
How
weapons-
unfortunate.
I also got 6.
And that's apart from the weapons,
Your
because you
weapons-
start with a knife and 2 firearms.
Okay.
Or
Basically.
a piece of armor.
Yes, one of those firearms can be a piece of armor.
So, armor decreases the threat of damage it'll deal to you. Melee weapons and fist fighting ignore armor. They can roll up on you and still hurt you.
That's why I roll a skill in fighting.
There you go. One thing that we did break out in the skills was firearms, warfare, and fighting. Warfare being handheld melee weapons, fighting being actual hand-to-hand fisticuffs, and firearms being mechanical weapons.
Yeah, so I took fighting and warfare as 2 skills of mine.
You did not take firearms.
I did not take firearm.
Okay.
I plan on using more bow and arrow type.
Cool.
Yeah.
In the what you rolled for, you can take other weapons, right?
No. So in what you rolled, those are only items or gear, not weapons.
Okay.
So instead of a firearm, can I have a bow? Or is that a separate?
Yes. So we'll probably reword that to read weapons.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So you get a knife and two
other
weapons or armor and a weapon.
Correct.
Knife.
So just so you know, I would need some clarification and direction on this. One of the spells I took is Rune of Animated Ink.
Oh, yeah.
So can that be like any weapon?
It's not designed to be firearms.
Okay, no, I mean, that's
I
fine.
think in the writing, it's not designed to be a projectile weapon.
Okay.
So not a bow and arrow. But yeah, that is, I don't know if you want to tell anybody about that spell, but that is a really cool spell.
A tattoo that you have of a weapon becomes an actual weapon.
That's cool.
That's cool.
And the cool thing is because it's a rune, you can draw it on someone else.
That's really cool.
So
Okay.
yeah. So in terms of the weave, the wild uses incantations and channeling. They have to be touching different elements for different spells, right? And shadow magic uses runes and somatic motions. So different hand motions, different body motions, sometimes a combination of the both to interact with that thread of the weave.
So for gear or an item, if I said that I had a bag of different priestly robes to where it covers a bunch of, that's one item.
Yeah.
Okay. Turbo grain, I'm assuming, is like it's fuel, baby.
So
is it drinkable?
Is it drinkable? Yes. Does it have side effects that could potentially be hazardous? Yes. So there is poison and sickness in this game, and that works on a kind of neat way. When you get sickness or poison, each turn you try to resist it from growing, and as it grows, it does more and more damage to you. It's kind of like bleeding. Bleeding is a real problem in this game. You can take an action point to try to stop your bleeding, but I think you'll find that you'll have a lot of fun with melee weapons. So melee weapons in this have either a plus or a minus. You roll your warfare, you either add or subtract from that based on the weapon, and then there's a little melee scale that you look at and think about like strongman at the fair, like dong, how high you can get it. So as it goes up, it increases in the status effect that you can garnish, but it doesn't accumulate. Right, so you could get it up to bleeding. You could roll really poorly on a really good weapon and only inflict bleeding. You could roll really well on a knife, but it only gets you up to maybe a trauma. Or you could roll really well on an axe and you can actually kill someone with an axe in one hit. If you roll a 6 with an axe and you are skilled in warfare, that becomes a 7. It's like a +6. I think they have 1 hit point after that. It's designed to be gritty. But if you don't want to kill somebody and you accidentally rolled really high, you can hold your blow. Hold back to the level that you want. The damage is written up to,
Nice.
up to, not...
No, Brother Benedict.
Yeah.
I was telling Mike about that. Yeah. It's like, we got to spend points to make sure he doesn't die.
Right. Yeah. This accounts for intention. And fist fighting works a little bit differently in this game as well. Fist fighting is all about objectives. You're not doing damage with fist fighting unless you choose to do damage. You can choose to do several things with fist fighting, and a success gets you that objective. So you can knock someone out, you can subdue them, you can tie them up, you can any number of things, but it's not inherently about doing damage. It's about garnishing strategic advantage. You also don't necessarily want to walk around making a lot of noise in this world. The beasts of the earth are not what they were pre-collapse. Part of the fun of Grimworld is learning about past catastrophes in little bits of fragments that you will find. It might be a record album. It might be, one of the examples we give is a recipe for lasagna. But it might be also battle plans from a nation on the eve of some great catastrophe. So it really depends.
That's cool.
The language that everyone uses is not based on a prior language. Well, I mean, it has elements in the prior language, but if you find literature from pre-collapse, you don't automatically know that language. The trader's tongue is what everyone uses. Uses a lot of symbols and hieroglyphs, but as a rule, you generally have to research things that you find from the pre-collapse. You don't automatically know, hey, this is a textbook from this college, and da-da-da-da-da. You know, it is only the learned wise men, either the lensers or the weavers, that have really found out what these elements of things are.
So the tongue, it's Traitors, tongue?
No. Traders, Traders.
You were hoping. So as far as the items that we can have like a sled.
Pole.
Okay.
So I added a magnifying glass, like just the lens.
Absolutely. Just the lens?
Yeah, just the lens that I can keep in my pocket.
So yeah, I have a wood axe. It matches. I have rope.
I've got, with my 12 items, a canteen, rope, poncho, flint, tinted goggles, playing cards, a metal straw, forger's gloves, a camping pot, salt, a thermal blanket, and a braided lock of hair.
I like the salt.
Is the hair yours?
No.
I have a petrified heart that I just carry around with me.
Sure.
Is it yours?
It's used as an intimidation tactic.
Okay.
Okay, so I have 6 things. A bag of priestly robes, waterproof canvas, rope, a jug of grain alcohol, a fire kit, and a sled.
I also have a first aid kit.
Essential.
Yes.
I have tools, a ghost whisper, water tank, tarp, and a rope.
Water tank, not tank of water.
Correct.
Another one of my items is smithing tools. I still get 4 more
Yes,
gear
lead
slots.
pencils.
Well, yeah, like I said, you can save
I
them
know,
for
you can save
retconning.
'em.
One of the things I really enjoy, the Outlaw has something really cool that they can do about that, to where they can retcon a detail, essentially. There is a spell that does that. I think it's a shadow spell. I don't know if Jeremy took it or not. But you can lay hands on a party member and communicate back in time to that party member based on potency, how far back you can go to give them a vision to influence the now. So if you did really well, you might be able to go back like hours or days and say, hey, bury a gun here.
Okay. Make sure you put this in your backpack.
Right. Don't go around this corner. Don't pull this lever, pull that one. Right. I really enjoy the intensity of some of the wild spells, because you're dealing with like lightning and lava, and you can travel through elements and take people through elements with you. But shadow spells got some really cool stuff.
So I got notepad, water can, magnifying glass, lead pencils.
All right. So everybody's pretty much wrapping up character creation, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Let's do it once.
Around the table, introducing.
Your name, your path, your trade, your nickname.
Yes.
Does anybody want to start, or do you mind if I...
Go ahead.
My name is Jamison. I am a Wrangler clergy, and my Wrangler bonded animal is a raven, and you can call me Jim.
All right. My name is Franklin. I am a sentinel fixer. I go around fighting for money and gear and whatever else. I don't have a nickname. People just call me Franklin.
You will have a nickname.
I'm sure I'll get one.
Lynn.
Everybody just comes up with their own nickname for you.
And it isn't always the same.
All right. My character's name is Justice Ciro. Nickname is Juice. He's a weaver nomad.
All right, my name is Nathaniel. I go by Nickel, and I am a Corsair detective. I am the leader and the investigator.
So my name is Arlo. My nickname is Squint. I am a tinker who actually travels around a lot and does repair work to sell things. I like gather things together, fix them up, and then sell them at other places. A little description about me. I'm nearsighted. I'm balding. I'm actually a little bit on the husky side. So that's, a little bit about myself. But about my background, everyone thinks that I'm a wizard at fixing things, but I'm actually a fraud.
I like that. So we'll get ready to go into party creation, but some of the things that I want you to think about right now about your survivor. How did you get to where you are in life today? What is a recent or distant trauma that you have experienced? Do you have any friends or enemies?
No.
Why or why not? What's in your pockets? How come? What is your outlook on life? What are 3 things that you believe? What are 2 goals that you have? What obstacles stand in the way of these goals? And what is your survivor's chief motivation in life right now? Something to think about.
All right, we're going to find out a little bit more about our party and then begin next time. Thank you very much for listening to this special edition of Bone Throwers Theater, where we are playing Grimworld. Thank you for listening to Bone Throwers Theater. We are releasing this podcast under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. That means you can share the podcast, but please do not modify it or try to gain financially from it. If you would like to visit our website, you can do so at bonethrowerstheater.com. If you would like to send us an email, you can do so at bonethrowerstheater@gmail.com. Our Twitter handle is bonethrowerstheater. You can also look us up on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, may the bones fall ever in your favor. This has been a Nerd Circle podcast production.